Let me know when you guys can see my screen.
We can see your screen.
Okay, great. Thanks, Katie. So good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining the webinar. Today we'll be talking about upgrading PANW's version on firewalls. We'll talk about checklists, steps you need to take before upgrade, during your upgrade, and after upgrade. We'll also take a look at common troubleshooting scenarios. So before we jump into it, a little about me. I've been with Palo Alto Networks for an year now, supporting state and local government customers here in Southern California. Before this, I was at Juniper Networks, and there I worked with customers from different verticals like enterprise, public sector, commercial, cloud. Apart from networking and security, I also have a background in automation. So before we start, I just want to talk about what is PANWS software. For those who are new to Palo Alto Networks, I'll give you a little background on PANWS. PANWS is the software that runs on the Palo Alto Networks next-gen firewalls, whether it's on hardware, software, VM, or containerized, or even a cloud-based firewall. This same software actually runs on our management platform, which we call Panorama. And this is something that sets us unique in the industry. The same software that runs on the variety of platforms brings simplicity to your configuration and management. The PANWS software, how do you identify what PANWS software version you are running currently on your firewall? To see that, you actually go to your dashboard, and on your dashboard under the general information, you look at the software version, and there you'll see the current version that you're running on your firewall. Then now we talk about PANWS software updates. I want to talk about what it means when we say we are upgrading or updating our PANWS software. So Palo Alto Networks releases sets of new features, capabilities that our customers can take advantage of without upgrading the hardware actually, but just upgrading the software. And to do that, you just need to upgrade your PANWS software. We actually publish a publicly accessible page, which is called software release guidance page. You can go to that page and you can find out what are the new releases, and there is always a release note to those releases and you need to understand how that new release will affect your environment. You can take a look at the upgrade and downgrade considerations and understand what are the potential changes that will be brought to your PANWS upgrade. So on that page, you'll see anything with P, that means it's a preferred release. And that is the guidance which is based on our experience in the support. And anything new, it's a new release and it's currently being monitored. So now once you have decided that what version or what release you want to move to, and preferred P or the preferred release is the release you would want to actually move to, then you follow a complete workflow to upgrade your firewall to a new PANWS version. And that workflow or the steps are actually dependent on what versions you're currently running and how you want to upgrade your firewall. Are you running or are you managing your firewall from Panorama? Are you running your firewall as standalone? Or if you're using HA or if you're running your firewall as an HA mode? So like I said, the workflow or the steps actually are dependent on how you're running your firewall, either from Panorama or as a standalone or an HA. And today in this session, we'll focus on upgrading the firewall as an HA pair. Now, once you know what version you want to upgrade to, there is a path for that upgrade. So for here as an example, if you're running 10.0 version, and the reason we take 10.0 as an example here, because 10.0 is going to be end of life soon. So it's highly recommended that you upgrade your firewall to 10.1 version. So for suppose you're running 10.0 version on your firewall, you basically download the preferred release for 10.0 and you install that release. Then you reboot your device. Then you just download the base version of 10.1, which is 10.1.0. And then you upgrade your firewall to the preferred version for 10.1. So you need to install and download and install the preferred version, and you just need to download the base version. You don't need to install the base version. And before doing that, you always need to review all the issues, all the upgrade, downgrade considerations, everything, and everything is posted on the release notes to understand how it's going to affect your environment. And not just for the release or for the image that you are upgrading to, but all the images or all the releases which are coming on your way on the upgrade path. So now the checklist. These are some checklists that you need to take into consideration before upgrading your firewalls. Step number one, which is the most important step, is to make sure that your device is registered and licensed. Then the next step is to verify that you have enough disk space. So what you can do is you can see what is the size of particular PANOS release which you are going to install on your firewall. So you can go to the device software and you can review the size of that PANOS release to determine how much disk space that a particular image is going to take. And then you can compare that disk space on how much disk space you have left on your firewall. You can run this command, show system disk space, from your CLI on the firewall, and then compare that if you have the enough disk space or not. Then third step is to verify the minimum content update release version. So Palo Alto Networks frequently publishes updates, and these are the updates for the contents like application and threat, wildfire. And to upgrade your firewall to a particular PANOS version, it needs to be on a minimum content release version. So you need to verify that, and all these information you will find on the release notes. So you need to verify that you are running the minimum release version on your firewall for the contents. And the best way to do that is always run the most latest release version for your content, so that you're always on the latest version, you're getting all the signatures, everything that's being published. And yeah, and then you identify what's the preferred release you want to upgrade your firewall to. Depending on your preferred release, you determine your upgrade path. We just talked about the upgrade path. If you're upgrading from 10.0 again, then you actually download and install the preferred version of 10.0. Then you just download the base version of 10.1, and then you download and install the preferred version for 10.1. And then once you have determined your upgrade path, one step that I actually like, and it makes the upgrade process very, very simple, is to keep all your downloads ready. Don't install yet, but just keep all your downloads ready. And last and very important step is to verify that you are having a connectivity to your update server. So you can go to the device troubleshooting, and there you can check if you are, you can test and you can check if you are connected to the update server or not. Okay, now day before upgrade. What are the steps you need to take a day before you upgrade? The first step is to open a preemptive tag ticket. When you open a preemptive tag ticket, please mention the time zone for your maintenance window. This will make sure that the ticket gets assigned to the tag engineer who is working on your time zone for that maintenance window. Then you take a backup of your current configuration. So when you go to the device setup operations, you'll see that you can export the configuration or the snapshot of the configuration which you're running currently. And this will make sure that just in case anything goes wrong while upgrading, or if you have any problem, you can restore back to the current configuration. And then, like how you open the tag ticket, or every tag ticket, you would know that you need to download a tech support file. You do the same step over here. You download the tech support file, and then you upload that tech support file along with the config file, which you just generated on the tag case, so that you have everything ready for the tag engineer. If there is any issue, they can look at the tech support file, they can look at the config file to find out if there is any issue. And then the step 5, which is again the most important step, that you need to make sure for your dynamic updates or your content release version updates that you are running the most latest one, or the minimum version which is required for that particular PAN-OS release version. So once you go to the device dynamic updates, you can check what if you're running the latest one or if you're running the versions, and you can look at the versions over here. Like this is just a screenshot of that page. You can look at the version. You can verify if you're running the version which is required for that particular PAN-OS release. And if the version is not coming up, there will be a check now button on the bottom, and you can click that check now button, and that will give you the list of the new versions, and then you can download and install the new versions. And this thing you have to do for this thing you have to do for your both HA pairs, not just like for your primary or your secondary, but for your both HA pairs. Now, day before upgrade, review your checklist again. Most important step, which we often overlook, is to make sure that our device is registered and licensed. And then the last step, which will make your upgrade process very, very simple, is to keep all your downloads ready. If you don't see, for any reason, if you don't see all the software versions, you click on the check now button on the bottom. When you go to the device software, you'll see a check now button. When you click on that, it will start, all the new releases will start popping up. And then you just download those releases and wait for the install when on the change window day. Okay, now we come to the change window day, or the day you want to make changes, or the day you want to upgrade. Before making changes or before upgrading, there are a few steps that you should take, that you should follow to understand, to make your process very, very simple. First is you need to create a freeze. You can, if you have any changes that you made to your firewall or your panorama, you need to commit those changes, and then you need to download the updated tech support file as well as the config file. So basically repeat all the steps that you did previously, downloading the file and then updating those files on the tag case, so that tag knows that, okay, if this was the change and these are the updated tech support files and these are the updated config files. Then the step 3 is to make sure that you are seeing the release version that you want to upgrade to. If you're not seeing, then click on the check now and that will pop up. And then the last step, if you have not already downloaded, please download all the desired versions that you need for both of your primary and secondary firewalls in the HA mode. And this will make sure, this will ensure that when you actually go to your change window, you don't take a lot of time for downloading, only the time you take time just to install the versions. Now we come to the day of the change. And these are the change window tasks that you need to take. So first you need to disable, First you need to disable the preemption setting. If you have a preemptive setting, then you need to disable that preemptive setting on your firewall. And that you can do on any one of the firewall of the pair, or you can, here in this example, we are upgrading the primary pair first. So we actually do it on your primary or your active firewall. So you go to the device HA, and under the election settings, you'll see preemptive, and you just disable the preemptive setting. This will make sure that whenever the firewall reboots, it will come back in the same state. That means if your preemptive setting is disabled, and if the firewall or the device reboots, then if it was active earlier, it comes back, or it resumes this role in the active state, despite whatever the priority you have configured on that firewall. And this is really important step to make sure that the other firewall does not take the active priority, or it does not get stuck into the loop of suspended or any kind of like suspended loop. Now, if in this example, as we talked about, we are talking about the upgrading the HA pair. And if you're running your firewall in active state, then you upgrade your active primary first. And if you're running your firewall in active passive state, then you upgrade your active HA pair first. So for the first step here, we start our upgrade on active primary. So for that, we need to suspend the primary HA peer, and that we can by doing a force failover. So we go to the device HA and operational commands. We'll see a command called suspend local device. We use that command to suspend the local device. This will make sure that your primary is suspended and goes into the passive state, and then your secondary becomes active. So in this, you can check that on, if you go to your secondary firewall, if you go to the dashboard, you can check that your secondary HA peer has transitioned to the active state. And you can also verify that your primary is suspended. On the bottom where you see tasks, you can see that it shows the current state for your secondary, which is the suspended state. Now you start installing the PANOS versions for the primary firewall. Go to the device software. If you have already downloaded, you can click on the install. If you have not downloaded, then according to your upgrade path, which you have already verified, start downloading and then installing the image. And if at any time you see there is a file download error, click on the check now so that the firewall talks to the upgrade server or update server, and the list of PANOS images gets refreshed. Then once the installation is complete, you'll see a prompt for reboot. If you, for any reason, if you miss that prompt, you can actually manually reboot your firewall. You can go to the device setup operations, and there you can click on reboot device to manually reboot your firewall. The rebooting time depends on what version of the PANOS you're upgrading to, also what kind of firewall you're having in your environment. So it can be anything in between 10 to 15 minutes. Once your firewall reboots and comes back up, you'll notice your firewall comes back up in the HA state. And then you can verify that the device which you just upgraded is still in the passive state. You can look at the HA widget on your dashboard to verify this information. You can validate all the HA functionality. And then you can this is also an important step, that you log in and you see that your primary is back up again and everything is functional on your primary as it was. But the state of your primary should still be in the passive state. Now, the next step is to upgrade the secondary HA. For the secondary HA, we follow the same steps. We suspend the secondary device, that makes sure that your secondary, which was active then, goes into the passive state, and the primary, which was passive then, transitions to the active state. So if you go and check your secondary dashboard, or you can see that your secondary is in the passive state, and on the bottom right corner, it will say the state is suspended, and your primary will come back to your active state. And this is the important step, so that we have no downtime and the traffic is still flowing through the primary. Then the step 6 is to install the PANOS version on the suspended secondary HA pair. So if you have already downloaded, click on the install for the desired versions that you want to install on your firewall. And once the installation completes, the firewall reboots. If the reboot prompt does not comes up, then you manually reboot the firewall. Wait for some time. The reboot, as I said, the reboot sometimes might take from 10 to 15 minutes. And if at any time you feel you want to see when the firewall comes up, what you can do is you can, from your command prompt, or you can just run ping -t, and then you can see when your firewall is, you can see the whole state. Like when your firewall comes up, then you can start pinging. You can see that you can ping to your firewall. Once the firewall comes up, validate the HA functionality on your secondary HA peer. You'll see the firewall came back up again in the passive state. Wait for some time so that the HA peer gets synchronized. Both the HA pairs get synchronized. You can verify that on the dashboard under the running config status. You'll see in the HA widget, you'll see that it will show up as a synchronized. If it does not show as synchronized, there will be a button to which you can click, and the button will say synchronize, and then you can click on that sync button, and it will start synchronizing both secondary and primary HA peer. If you have disable the preemption setting on the HA peer, just go back to your primary and re-enable your preemptive setting to what it was, and then commit the changes. The last step is to verify that your peers are passing traffic as expected. For your active peer, you can verify this from the CLI as well as from the UI. From the UI, you can go to the monitor logs, and then you can see if your firewall is passing traffic as expected or not, or you can verify it from the CLI. You can go to the active peer and you can run show session all command to see if your active peer is passing traffic as expected. You can also verify the synchronization state by running the show HA interface HA2 command and make sure that the counters for the CPU tables are increasing. And this will make sure that you are passing traffic as expected. So once you have validated that the traffic is being passed from the firewall, now what you can do is you can test all the resources, or you need to test that you are back to the business as normal. You can go to your computer and you can test that if you can access your company web pages, internal web pages, if you can access your internal resources like Salesforce, SharePoint, whatever you have as your internal resources. You should also check that that your Global Protect is running fine, and if everything looks good, then your upgrade is successful. If at any point, if there is any issue, then you can contact TAC. Here, the advantage is because you have already opened a TAC ticket, you can just use that TAC ticket and you can contact TAC there. And you can also reach out to your SE so that they can reach out to the technical person which is assigned to that TAC ticket and make the process seamless. So these are the common troubleshooting scenarios that you need to take a look for your PANOS upgrades. Sometimes if you see that the dynamic update fails, this occurs because there is a network connectivity error. So you need to verify that your firewall has DNS servers configured and it's able to resolve updates.paloaltonetworks.com. You need to verify that you have a default gateway assigned to your firewall, which is the appropriate gateway for your environment. Also, make sure that your firewall is able to resolve FQDNs. So yeah, like the basic network connectivity, troubleshooting basic network connectivity issues. Then next, if you see the latest PANOS versions are not available. So what happens basically is if you're upgrading from 8.1, you'll see the version only 9.0. If you want to see version 9.1, you need to upgrade your firewall to 9.0. So this is where you'll see a release only one ahead of your currently installed version. Sometimes you'll see that the image is failing to load onto the software manager, and you'll see and there will be an error which is image authentication error. This usually happens when you upgrade when there is an issue with the update server. So as I said, there is a small check now button on the bottom of the firewall, on the bottom of your dashboard page. Once you go to your UI, you go to the device software, you'll see a check now button. If you click on that check now button, it establishes a new connection to the update server. And sometimes you see that if you're upgrading a firewall in an HA mode, one of the firewall will go into the suspended state automatically, saying that the firewall version is too old. This usually happens when you're upgrading more than one major release ahead. So if you're upgrading, say, from like 9.1 to 10.1, this might happen. So to avoid this, you need to make sure that you first upgrade both of your firewalls to one particular major release, then to another particular major release. So if that happens, if by any chance that happens, then downgrade to the version there where it got suspended, and then upgrade both of your firewalls to a particular major release, and then upgrade to your firewalls to another particular major release. So yeah, this is about upgrading your PANOS software on your firewalls. It's pretty straightforward. Any questions? Let me look at the questions.
Sorry, Rinky, I've been answering the questions on the chat this whole time.
Thanks, Rafael.
Yeah, sorry I stole your thunder on that. Does anybody have any other
No.
questions? Anything else that you guys might have in regards to? Yeah. So just to recap with that, Rinky, what we were going over, some of the questions were like, what if I do it this way or this other way? There's really not a wrong way. Rinky was just going over like a big overview, like, hey, here's what recommends, and it has to be like a fit all. But of course, if you have a type of setup, or like, like for example, one of the questions was like, hey, I have IPsec tunnels and I have other things that I check. There's not really a wrong answer on that, because you actually have to do your checks to validate what best fits your environment or what best fits your company. So there's not really, like, hey, what if I do the secondary before the primary? That's still a valid scenario as long as you understand there'll still be two failovers either way, because you got to fail over when that one goes active, and then you got to fail over it so that the primary goes back to active, right? So there's no wrong way when it comes to that, just because of the fact that you have to, you will have to reboot both boxes, and there will be failovers and test scenarios. So yeah, so this is more of like a big overview, like, hey, here's something that can help you, but it doesn't, everybody's got their own scenario where they can actually just grab what they need out of this to apply it to what best suits them. As well as the preemptive ticket. Mostly if you want to do a preemptive ticket, it's just for the what if scenario. So if I have to deal with TAC, the pre-upgrade configs for the tech support file and the config are there. So if they ask me like, hey, can you give me what it looks like now? It's only the new stuff that you might need to update, or they can actually start looking at what was there from before. And it saves you time as well, because when you have a deployment that's not going well and you have your window, I mean, it's very normal that we get into freak out mode and we want to get answers faster. So this is just to make it a little bit faster. I also, whenever we have a deployment like that or an upgrade like that, I recommend doing the ticket like exactly 24 hours or so before the change. What that does is that that someone that's going to be at the same time as you're doing this change should be around to, it's not going to be someone that's like, hey, I grabbed it at 3 p.m, but my change is at 6, but this guy gets off work at 5. Now we have to requeue it to actually get someone on that time frame. So yeah, and all the steps Rinky went over is just to make sure that you actually cover more than, let's cross our T's and dot our I's and make sure that we cover what would actually benefit if you did a deployment, of course, with the understanding that it'll be customized to your environment.
Yeah. So as Rafael mentioned, like, you can upgrade the secondary first, but the only difference is you will have to do forced failovers. You'll have to take care of those things. Like, you need to avoid the downtime, and for that you need to make sure that one of your firewall is always in the active state. So for that you have to do forced failovers. So this is just like an example, but there is no right or wrong way. You can start from upgrading your secondary first, or you can start from upgrading, as this example, you can start from upgrading your primary first. So I see some more questions. There is a question if that since 10.0 is EOL, will be upgrading directly from 9.1 to 10.1. No, you should still go from 9.1 to 10.0 and the preferred release for 10.0, and then go to 10.1, because that's the path that you need to follow. Then when we upgrade the PA220 version to 10.1.p, why is the performance getting reduced? So this usually happens like what the content, first make sure that you're running the appropriate content version on PA220 for the version which is required for 10.1.p, and the performance getting reduced. That's something which I have not noticed. I think you have seen, Rafael.
Sincerely apologize. I was replying to a chat. What was that?
That if you upgrade to PA220, if you upgrade PA220 to 10.1.p, do you see the performance getting reduced?
Yeah, it is. It's like, mind you, these are bigger files as well as like more features to handle. So yes, And that's why they came out with the 440 series, so they can actually have the newer hardware handle that heavier, as it is just like anything else. Operating systems, as much as as they come out newer, they come out with more features and more things. So it does put a toll, especially on the 220s, which is as it stands, they are very slow to commit. Just with like some of the lower end code. Now imagine like you do 10.1, 10.2, it's gonna add to that taxing.
Yeah, and also the reboot times for the upgrade, that also will depend on what kind of firewall you're running. So for PA220, the reboot time will be a little more than other newer firewalls. Then another question is, do you need to upgrade the latest minor release within the major release 10.1 to 9.1 to 10.0 to... Yes, you always need to, if you are on 9.1 version, you need to upgrade to the preferred release for 9.1. Then you need to upgrade to the preferred release for 10.0, and then you need to upgrade to the preferred release for 10.1. I've used this link to check the start versions. Okay, and if we are to upgrade an HA pair from 9.1 to 10.1, is this correct? 9.1 to the latest recommended release, 10.0 to the base, secondary 10.0 to the base, primary 10.1 to the recommended release, base recommended release. Yes, this is correct step. Yeah. So
hey, going back to Marcelo's point, yeah, that page actually has like the latest and greatest on what it's part of the live community for the upgrade path on what you want to see, what's the preferred releases. Sorry, cut you off, Rinky.
Yeah, no worries.
Mm-hmm.
And the upgrade path looks good for 9.1. So you upgrade your primary and secondary to the preferred release for 9.1. Then you don't actually upgrade to the 10.0 base. You just download that 10.0 base. Then you upgrade to the preferred release for 10.0. Then you just download the 10.1 base. You don't upgrade to the 10.1 base. You just upgrade to the 10.1 preferred release or the recommended release, which you see on the release guidance page. So yes, this will require multiple reboots, but all for the preferred release versions, but not for the base release versions. And yes, you guys will get a copy of these slides. Any other question?
Yeah, one of the other items that was brought up on the chat itself, you know how you mentioned like, hey, download the text profile as well as the config. Usernaming standard actually makes sense to you. You know, like for example, the text profile, they'll be downloaded with the same name. While you do the primary, just change it to like at the end, like, you know, put like a P or change it to the name of what you want it to be labeled. Make it so that it's convenient for you. And so when TAC sees it, it actually understands once you've laid out the layout of what you have. Hey, I have my primary and my secondary, so they can actually differentiate which one's which when they're actually helping you with the troubleshooting. So absolutely, Robert, that was a great point. We're like, hey, name it what you need it, you know, something that makes sense to you and that can make sense to other people if they need to actually look at it.
Yeah. And yeah, if I see a lot of questions for PA220, significant performance impact. So yeah, PA220 is a very, very small device. So as Rafael mentioned, we have PA400 series, which is much more capable, and that won't have that much performance degradation. Yeah, we'll give you guys the slides and the recording. Any other questions?
Yeah, Karen had a question like, would the 10.0 be available after the URL? Yes, you can still go up to that code because you still need to make the step to that code to get to the 10.1.
Yeah. Yeah, good point, Stephen. Yes, you need to make sure that your Panorama version is ahead of your Firewall Panos versions.
The other thing, I don't know if the end of life has been announced yet for the 220s. Let me check real quick.
I don't see that either.
Yeah, it's just the 200s. I don't see the 220s.
Yeah, yeah. 220s have not been announced well yet.
Yeah, with that being said, if you guys don't mind, you mind if I share the screen real quick, Rinky?
Yeah.
I just want to show a little page for you guys to see. This is I happen to have it up by accident. You guys didn't see these. These are the commit times and reboot times for the current firewalls, just so you have some information on that. As you can see from the 220, the commit and the reboot, this is actually running 10.1, right? So if you notice the big difference between having a 220 and a 440, and price-wise, they're very comparable. So just you get an idea why they're coming out with a new hardware. If you go 450, 460s, you can actually see the same. Within a minute, you're doing your commit. So it's just newer hardware to keep up with the newer operating systems. Any other questions, guys? Anything else that we can Okay, what's the best way to purchase a lab 440 these days? You normally have to go to your VAR, and your VAR will be able to get you a quote on that, as well as you can go to your account team. If you want this to be either, if you want this for a personal, I've had it where customers have gone to their VAR and got it from them. If it is for your work related, just talk to your account team and they can get you that. The licensing for lab equipment is much cheaper than the deployed versions. Kurt, I do have those. Let me share my screen again. Give me one sec.
Yeah, we have those for.
Yeah, give me 1 sec. I'm going to share the screen again.
Okay.
Let me know when you guys can see the VM metrics. You guys see it?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can see it.
There you go. You never heard this from me. You never saw this from me, guys. But that's the numbers. Yeah. Anything else? And as always, reach out to your SE, reach out to us. We're here to help, or at least point you in the right direction, guys. So yeah, Rinky and I are peers, and we bounce off a lot of ideas all the time. So if you reach out to any of us, it'll get to both of us eventually, and Gabriel, who's also here in the chat helping out. We're very thankful that you guys are here to listen to our presentations.
Thank you so much, everyone. I'll hand it back to Katie.